now it's digital. And now it's digital. And now it's digital. And these waves have been moving us through the 20th century. And the 21st century is all going to be digital. Marsh McLuhan said it. It's a global village linked together by electricity and light. And we're just lucky. We're the luckiest people that ever lived to be alive at this moment when you can see what's happening. We're finally going to have what McLuhan predicted, a global village.
Greetings, everyone. This is Zen speaking, and I've got a friend here called Soul.
Hello, hello.
Hello, 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 hello. And we're just going to have a little ramble and see where it leads and upload it and see what you guys think. So, yeah, Soul. So we started a podcast. Hopefully it's going to take off. We can get some more people with some interesting perspectives and subjects talking with us in the future. But anything in particular you've read or looked at recently, what sprung to mind you want to talk about?
Um,
I mean, did you see the Chosen One video I put up earlier? Did you get to see that?
sorry, say again?
I put a video up called Chosen Ones because someone was putting a video, someone sent me a video about Chosen Ones, where a gentleman was speaking about how to tell 5 ways if you're a chosen one. And it was stuff like if you've had hardships in your life and you don't fit in and all kinds of stuff like that. And the guy spoke a lot of wisdom in the video, but also I think a lot of not very productive stuff as well. Like he was saying along the lines of, you're here to save other people. You're here to wake up other people and to follow your own path. And I believe everyone's got to follow their own path, but I don't think it's healthy to have this mindset, which he was adopting of saying people are like NPCs or people are demon-possessed humans and stuff like that, So I think it's just not healthy. And it also creates division. It creates division. And how can you claim you're a chosen, woken being or a spiritual being when you're looking at this us and them mentality of they're not awake or they're NPCs or they're sheep? Do you know what I mean?
Okay, what is a chosen one?
Sorry?
What is a chosen one?
Well, I don't believe there is a chosen one. I think we're all chosen ones. I think everyone's a chosen one.
Oh, okay.
My attitude is that, we've all got a role to play in life, no matter how insignificant it may seem to others, like the butterfly effect, a butterfly flaps its wings somewhere and it can create a tornado on the other side of the world. Everyone's interactions and relationships are just as important as anybody else's. And I personally think, and I could be completely wrong, that the universe is a conscious entity, that it's evolving. We live as the universe experiencing itself. And what I mean by that is that I think the universe is conscious from the very simple atoms to the stars, to the planets, to the rocks. I think it's a subject called panpsychism, which already exists, what covers that topic. But basically, I think we're all basically co-evolving. We're all basically codependent. And if we think anyone's more important than anybody else, then it's just detrimental to our personal well-being as well as our collective evolution. How do you think about that? What do you think about that?
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for these things. I mean, obviously, it's a very broad thing you're mentioning. But yeah, I think it's not healthy to... I think it stems a lot from the ego, as you say. There's chosen people or there's not chosen people. It's like very, I don't think it's it doesn't come from a very good place. I think
It doesn't come from a compassionate place. And I think, how can you speak of being spiritually aware or spiritually woken or spiritually chosen if compassion is void, if compassion is not part of your spiritual evolution or perspective?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just a construct of the mind, because, I mean, if you take it very seriously, I mean, the concept of like, I didn't see the video, but the way you describe it, like, see, if you say you're chosen, it's like a way of making yourself feel more important than you are. I think, I mean, surely, people that have hardships in their lives, and rise from that in a way. Everybody likes a good from zero to hero story, or like somebody that
The hero's journey.
yeah, hero's journey. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And what is and for those of us who aren't aware, I probably couldn't put it as well as you could probably put it. What is the hero's journey? Wasn't it someone Campbell, a gentleman called someone Campbell, who presented a big series on the hero's journey, how the hero's journey is found within folklore tales, myths, religious stories, and how it's portrayed even in Hollywood in films like The Matrix and so on.
Sure.
Joseph Campbell, that was it. Joseph Campbell, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know about any names for the hero, but I guess, yeah, stemming from folklore, it's something to respect, I guess. I don't know, the hero's journey.
I think it gives us a sense. It gives the hero's journey as well. Gives people a sense of possibility. If you're facing hardships, and you're in difficult times and difficult places, whether that's a physical place or a mental place or an emotional place or a spiritual place, knowing the stories of the hero's journey of how they overcome such trials and tribulations and become the hero at the end of the tale, it sort of gives people a bit of hope, a bit of hope they can get through their journey and become the hero. And another thing, I think that's our problem in society and civilization, especially in Western civilization, it's the happy ever after syndrome, I call it. And that's where from a young age, we're kids, we're little kids, and we get taught these stories that once upon a time, something was good, then something bad happened, then there was a trial, and then it got good again, and everyone lived happy ever after. And I think when you're a kid, you're malleable, your neurology is susceptible to the things you're told and the experiences you experience. So when you're being told all these things, that something was good, then it got bad, then it was a trial, and then it was happy ever after, I think we got a tendency of getting brainwashed by that, thinking that if we are unhappy, we can make ourselves happy and it will last forever. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I think in a way that's where a lot of depression kicks in, and a lot of when kids start getting to their teens, and they start realizing that there is no happy ever after, and life is just a succession of unhappy moments and happy moments. There is no eternal bliss. That people fall into depression, or worse still, fall into dangerous ideologies, like cults and some forms of religious indoctrination, because they're looking for that constant fix of bliss or happiness, which is unattainable really, because life is a matter of surfing. It's a matter of being knocked down by life, but getting back up and getting back on the surfboard and riding the wave of life.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, to be alive is to endure hardship and to struggle. I mean, yeah, to put it, in simpler terms, the fact that you can be aware and be alive. The mere fact that there is life on Earth, for example, is just a definition of overcoming adversity and struggle. And I think maybe that's why we because adversity is life. Maybe that's why everybody likes a hero's journey, because it resonates. Yeah, but of course, if as humans, our minds are very complicated, and especially everybody's different. Everybody needs to coexist. If so many social complex things going on. So we try to make sense of everything, but I think to the core, that's why it resonates, because life is hardship, and that's the hero's journey. Yeah, overcoming that hardship. Yeah.
Interesting.
Put it simply, I think.
Beg your pardon?
Just putting it as simple as I can.
Yeah. So that was the video I put out on Chosen Ones. It's about a 3-minute video, because I just think that so many people, like you said, are looking to make sense of their own lives, and then looking to make sense of the bigger picture. We've never been more connected as a species, as far as we're aware. In recorded history or understood history, we've never been more connected as a species. And if we're to believe the evolutionary model, that we evolved, or to believe the tribal model that we were once living as tribes, all your communication took place mainly within your tribe, within your tribal community, within your family community. So our brains for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, however long you choose to believe we were here, was evolved to deal with your immediate surroundings, your immediate needs and place and communication within the tribe and community. So the brain's evolved a certain way, the brain's structured a certain way neurologically to deal with those forms of communication. But all of a sudden we've got this technology, our brains are still quite primitive to a degree. And we've got this communication, what's contacting us with everyone around the world. And we're being bombarded by everyone's messages, everyone's likes, everyone's dislikes, everyone's fears, everyone's desires, constantly through our phones, through the internet, through social media. But I think our brains get scrambled as well and overloaded. And the trouble is, a lot of the information what comes forward through the media and social media is really negative and detrimental to people's psyches and well-being. So with that extra stress and that extra pressure, not to mention the stress and pressure of living within, the sort of capitalist society we live in today, which is destroying the planet, people have just got so many fears building up. We've got this stuff with Russia and Ukraine. We've got those who believe in like the bigger conspiracies, like the New World Order or whatever's going on with that. We've got just so many angles of pressure and stress and fear. But I think people are desperately seeking that happy ever after, or even momentary, moments of happiness and bliss amongst a field of chaos. So I think we've got to be really careful with how we word and present ideologies and belief systems. If we want to move forward, we can't create division. We can't create further division, especially in the spiritual context. If we're going to start talking about spiritual context, surely a spiritual being would recognize that we are all one. Everything is one. All humans and life on earth is one great, organism. Long silence.
Yeah, he said a lot of things. Said a lot of things. Yeah, true. I mean, it's different things you say. Talk about spirituality, talk about, deeply like philosophical, things, about life, about politics, about, technology. So, maybe I'll comment on politics for a bit, because I was talking to somebody earlier actually about this, about Ukraine, whatever, and like the US being like a major military superpower and everything. So they control everything now, and they do a lot of bad things in order to stay, to keep that dominance.
Maintain a hegemony of control, is it? Is that the right
Yeah. Like even in Europe, our culture is basically very much influenced by America, right?
Yeah.
So, so is it better? What's the alternative? You can say like, I don't agree with lots of what's happening. Obviously there's, on that topic itself, there's many to talk about. But in general, I don't like what's happening for one world superpower to maintain its status. A lot of bad goes into that. But what's the alternative? Is that we all speak Russian? Is that we all speak Chinese? I don't know.
Yeah. But I mean, I hear what you're saying there. What's the alternative? We all speak Russian, we all speak Chinese.
I think before you
Go off on a rant.
say something, yeah. I just, obviously, yeah, if you're talking about all these things, it's very depressing. It really is. It really is. It just shows that as people, as a species, we shouldn't be indulging in power and money and greed. It's just bad. It's just our baddest characteristics as humans, I think. So, and the fact that our society is just built upon that is just, it's just somewhere along the way went
War is
wrong.
profit. We live in a war industry.
And you could say, yeah, oh, how are you going to change this now? What's the long run? What's the long run? People are just, people are making a lot of money on what's going on, keeping the status quo and keeping doing what there's no. I don't really think there's an end game. Like if you're talking
I made a
about,
poem called Status Quo. Have you heard it?
yeah, I think I heard it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think, yeah, yeah,
On the
I like
channel,
that
if you
one.
want to check it out, people. Status Quo, my poem. If you want to check that out.
Yeah, I like that one. This is pretty good. Um, but yeah, obviously, that just is very sad, and I think we need to try and move on from that. But yeah,
How do we move on from that? I mean, my perspective is how we move on from that is we need a revolution. Well, I think our first revolution starts with inside ourselves.
yeah,
You know,
spiritual revolution.
you can say it's spiritual, you can say it's empathic, compassionate. You don't have to use the term spiritual if you don't want to. But a revolution has to take part in ourselves, whether it's a
Philosophical
psychological,
revolution.
emotional, spiritual, where we realise that our commonalities, as I said in the video, what binds us as people, rather than what separates us. What binds us through our desires of what we want us in terms of peace and companionship and cooperation, rather than competitiveness and destruction of one another, which will lead to mutual destruction if we're not careful. I mean, the
Yeah,
revolution that
absolutely.
needs to take place is that we need to look inside ourselves and look into the dark corners of ourselves, but in the darkness as well is where the stars shine. You know, once we can get through the dark aspects of ourselves and our psyche and our spirits, I use that term loosely, we can find the stars within ourselves, the elements of compassion which we didn't think we had for ourselves and others, the levels of intelligence, and intelligence doesn't mean you're going to get a good Mensa score. You can have emotional intelligence. Somebody might be very nurturing and make a great carer. You know, someone might be very mathematical, make a great physicist. We've all got different levels of intelligence. I think it was Daniel Goleman who wrote a book called Emotional Intelligence, and he mentioned how there's different forms of brain structure in terms of how the mind works, the brain works. And say, for example, I'm probably making a mess of it here, but there's like, say, 5 archetypes of how the brain works: the mathematical archetype, an artistic archetype, a caring archetype, and so on. But in each archetype's got like 5 sub-archetypes. So you've got like a pyramid, a branch of different archetypes of how the human brain works, but the main education system only caters to one. And all those who fall at the sidelines are seen as either not too bright or dysfunctional or not going to fit in, because we're trained to fit into this system rather than trying to build a system what fits for people. So what I'm trying to say is that you don't have to be a physicist, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to be intelligent. Intelligence has got many forms, and I think everybody is chosen. Everybody is a chosen one because we've all got something to bring to the table, no matter how insignificant it may seem to the system or insignificant it may seem to ourselves. We've all got something we bring to the table, but I think the first thing we need to learn is compassion and discernment for ourselves as well as others.
Yeah, true. I like that quote. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you'll always think it's dumb. So I think that's very true.
Is that Einstein?
I don't know. The
It
internet
doesn't matter.
says I don't know if it's true.
I don't know if it was. I think I saw a post on spiritual Facebook, but there's so many quotes you see which have got no grounds to the person. They're not the person. They say Einstein said it or the Dalai Lama said it, and they didn't. But the quote's still really good. There's no need to attribute it to anyone really. It's just good sense.
Yeah, no, that's
I
true.
love that quote as well. That quote about the fish, climbing the tree is brilliant.
But yeah, I mean, I think yeah, we need to be compassionate and share and everything. But
But with discernment, compassion. That's why I always emphasize compassion and discernment, because there is a Buddhist saying called idiot compassion. The
mhm.
Buddhists are known for being just compassionate beings, but the Shaolin, do you know what I mean? You get on the wrong side of a Buddhist Shaolin monk, and you're going to get your head split open. There comes a
Mm,
time and a place where compassion you have to take a step back. And with idiot compassion, what it means by that is that you can't give too much of yourself. If it's at your own detriment, you can't pour from an empty cup. You've always got to
right.
look after your own life force, your own spirit, your own well-being, your own energy reserves. If you're constantly trying to help somebody who won't help themselves, there's got to come a time and a place where you step away or put boundaries between you and them. So we've got to have compassion, I believe. But we've also got to have discernment about when the line can be drawn, or how we distribute that level of energy and compassion we give to individuals and groups.
So how would you define discernment?
Discernment. My perception of it is that, for me, okay, and I know it's probably not the Oxford Dictionary's perception of it, but it means to judge well, to judge good. And what I mean by that is like, well, how can you judge things good? Who are you to judge people? You know, exactly. But if you're coming from a place of self, introspection, you're coming from a place of compassion in yourself for others as well as, yourself, you're already at a point where you're not going to be an egomaniac. You're not going to be, self-centered. You're not going to be seeking personal gain. You're going to be coming from a place of compassion. So within that field of compassion, that's where you've got to discern. Does this serve me? Does this serve the other person? Does this serve the collective? You know what I'm saying? So it's judgment. For me, discernment and compassion is making judgments from a place of wide seeing, big seeing, and compassion. Does that make sense? So I think once we take compassion out of the equation, judgments are just, well, they can be so detrimental to ourselves and others, because they come from a place of ego and sometimes fractured psyches. I think the important factor is to realize that the ego is the enemy to a degree, although we need it to survive. It's not the driver. It's a mechanism for survival. It's not a driver of action. It's not a driver of thought. It's not a driver of how we should shape this world. It's just a survival mechanism which we need to override and put back into the passenger seat through techniques like meditation, self-awareness through reading and studying psychologies and stuff like that,
Yeah. Yeah, you sure need to keep your ego in check.
Right, we're coming up to about 20 minutes here, so I reckon we take a quick break and then come back and have another little chat if you're up for it.
Sure.
Right, we'll be right back, people. Catch you soon.
And now it's digital. And now it's digital. And now it's digital. And these waves have been moving us through the 20th century. And the 21st century is all going to be digital. Marsh McLuhan said it. It's a global village linked together by electricity and light. And we're just lucky. We're the luckiest people that ever lived to be alive at this moment when you can see what's happening. We're finally going to have what McLuhan predicted, a global village.
Welcome back, fellow Earthlings. And here is Zen and Soul.
Hello there.
Hello. This is part 2 of the podcast. We're going to have another little ramble and see where it leads, and then wrap it up. So yeah, we covered a few things in the last section of the podcast.
Covered many things.
Sorry?
Covered many things.
But yeah,
Briefly.
is there any one subject you'd like to focus on, or any one subject you'd like to pick out of that and talk about it a bit more? That you can think of? Human origins, civilization. How about that?
Okay.
Now, I've got some very far out, probably unfounded or loosely founded belief systems when it comes to human origins. So I'd like to hear from you what you think our origins are, or potential origins, and why you think that. For example, then,
How far back are we talking?
for the audience, I just watched Soul's face inflate as he was trying to think what to say. That's what I was laughing at. Then he blurbed out something I couldn't quite grasp. Sorry, what was that, dude?
I said, how far back?
Exactly, how far back? Okay, so let's take the orthodox Darwinian "we came from apes" theory. Do you believe it?
We come from apes. I mean, DNA suggests we're at least closely related. So, yeah.
Okay. And on the subject of DNA, do you think there's a potential possibility that our DNA is being manipulated by either some cosmic event or extraterrestrial intelligence?
Possibility? Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Why
Are you
not?
familiar with the people's terminology and belief systems of the Anunnaki? Those who come from the sky, the ancient biblical texts who relate to, so say giants coming down and manipulating with our DNA and the Nephilim and stuff like that. Are you familiar with any of that stuff?
Is that the where is that like where angels are aliens?
Yeah, well, not so much angels,
Or not
but
really?
there's things called a Nephilim, I think.
No,
The Anunnaki,
heard about
right?
it, but not really.
Okay.
But I've heard, yeah, no, like closely. Closely is basically something about when you some books from the Bible and Christianity and whatever, and if you think about it and change the context as angels not being mythical beings or whatever, but just actually spacefarers coming to Earth, and just us being more primitive or whatever, or trying to dumb it down a bit
I
or
think,
whatever.
if from my understanding, some of the belief systems basically believe, and it goes back apparently to Sumerian culture, I think. And it's interesting because I got a history book, which
Sumerian, what's that like?
Sumeria was before
1000
Babylon.
BC?
I can't recall the exact dates. I'd be lying if I told you. I'd pull it out of the top of my head. I'd have to look it up and get a timeline up on the images for people to look at. But I know the Sumerian culture was like one of the first cultures. They're the first culture to have writing and mathematics, apparently. And I think the Samaran culture, I think, who came before them. I've got a book with a clay figure, and it's not a conspiratorial book, it's a legitimate history book, which you get in schools. And it shows a clay figurine of their gods. And I'll tell you what, so uncannily like the Greys, which we can lead into another subject and conversation on another date, because we're kind of worms.
I've right? Seen something like that, yeah.
But yeah, from what I understand of that reality tunnel, is that some people believe that these Anunnaki came down from the sky and bred with men, or genetically spliced men to be slaves, to do their work for them whilst they were
men. Like men already like apes, or?
I think they took some people believe they took apes, some people believe they took a primitive form of man and manipulated the DNA of a primitive form of man.
Like Neanderthal.
I don't know. Maybe I can't just say it. Maybe cavemen.
Yeah.
That's what some people believe. And some people believe it a lot. And some people believe it in, pretty impassioned ways, But like you said it perfectly. I think a moment ago you said when they changed the context or looked at it in a different context. And that's the thing. You can look at anything from history, especially written texts, which are so lucid and mythological and attribute them to anything. You can make, you can really find whatever you're looking for if you look at ancient texts.
Yeah. That is exactly true. I mean, that is exactly true. Something interesting I found was, I don't know if you heard about this. What was it? Like everything's encoded in the Bible or whatever. Like if you take
the Bible code. Yeah, the Bible code.
Yeah. Like and predicting future, but you can basically find anything you look for. Also,
it's called noise in science. They call it noise, don't they? In science and statistics, they call it noise.
Yeah.
If you look
for something, you're gonna find it.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. But on that point, not of noise, but looking for stuff, I don't know. I put in big capital letters, I don't know our origins. I don't know if I sincerely believe. From my personal quote-unquote delusions and experiences, I think that humans have evolved one way or another. There's a spiritual component involved. I do believe that the universe is a conscious entity. I don't mean it makes judgments, it makes what's right and wrong, it tells you what clothes to wear and what not to do and what fish to eat on what day and stuff like that. But I believe it's like a vibration, it's the energy, it's permitting, it's permeating throughout all things. Everything is essentially got a level of consciousness. And I think that humans, along with other forms of life on Earth, are at different levels of that consciousness. Humans being as far as we're aware, the highest form of conscious entity on this planet. And so I do believe that the universe experiences itself on a conscious level, and we are part of that. But I'm not ruling out as well that something may have come and tampered with our DNA, in the past and sped up our evolution for whatever reasons. And I'm also really interested in Graham Hancock's some of Graham Hancock's stuff, not all of it, But I'm really interested in his thesis on an ancient civilization which is been wiped out of history, so to speak. Any thoughts on that?
Hold on, I'm just making some notes. Hold that thought.
Okay. So yeah, just for the audience, there's some people who believe in like a sort of Atlantis, and or another continent called Mu, which is spelled Mu, which is believed to exist a very long time ago before civilization, which we understand it existed. But basically, the civilizations we see around the world, like the Mayans, Incans, Babylonians, and so on, were sort of predecessors of the survivalists of the great cataclysm which sunk these ancient continents. And some people say there's no evidence for these ancient continents because the cataclysm, what struck Earth so badly, destroyed all remnants of their civilization. So yeah, I'm going to pass on to Soul now and see what his thoughts were.
Yeah, so on that topic, I tend to favor the fact that, you know, it's just facts that the planet goes through cycles where there's ice ages and the ice melts and there's floods, and, you know, the fact that there's many remains of ancient civilizations what we just don't know anything about. And also the moment we start digging and actually look, it's stuff that, you know, is older than we think. We don't know anything about it, and the deeper we look, the older it gets and the weirder it gets. But one thing, you know, you just can't, you know, Grim Hancock, I think, does a great job at.
You can't just jump to conclusions. Oh, the aliens done it. Oh, it's Atlantis.
It's you know, if it's everywhere, then, you know, if something keeps popping up, you can't ignore it, you know. So, you know, and if you're talking about our planets, you know, and different continents and same kind of themes keep popping up in different places of the Earth, you know, different civilizations. I do think it's like, imagine that whatever with Ukraine and there's a nuclear war, or an asteroid hits Earth,
or a planetary shift,
or a storm. Yeah,
have you heard of the Earth turning on its axis?
Yeah, the magnetic poles shifting, anything like that, and everything we know as true and whatever, and our reality is just wiped. It's just alt delete, reset. So
as Cypher said in the Matrix, buckle your seatbelt, Dorothy, because Kansas is going bye-bye.
Yeah. So I do think, like, if we can look forward and say, yeah, well, that's an actual thing that can happen, then why shouldn't it have happened many times before? But to go a bit earlier than that, I think in science, what they believe now, the mainstream belief, is that just the right ingredients of life came on Earth, and, you know, one-cell organisms started to come about, and you know, from that we come, and that's a very, very rare occasion. Like, that's a very rare occasion.
The Goldilocks phenomena.
Yeah, but it is, like, you know, statistically, obviously, because we're here, we think that we're average, and that it makes sense that there would be different life forms on other planets or anywhere in the universe. So that's just because we are. So we just think, oh, we are, so it makes sense that there's others. But if you go through, you know, mainstream scientific beliefs, the statistical odds of that happening is actually almost zero to none. That, you know, all the right events happen at the right time, at the right thing.
Is that right? I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not disputing you. It's just that I thought there was something called, I'm not sure, I'm probably getting it wrong myself, but the Fermi paradox or something, isn't there? Have you heard of that?
I've heard about it, but what is it? If you can just give me...
I'm not 100% sure I've got the right terminology here, but basically, cut a long story short, there's actually a high likelihood there's other intelligent life because of the combination of how many stars there are and stuff like that. I'll have to look it up and comment on it on a future podcast, but carry on. Sorry to interrupt you. I just remember seeing something where and it's created by a really good YouTube channel. I can't remember their name neither. I'll have to root it out. But it's an animated channel, and they do science videos, and it was a brilliant video. They do amazing videos.
Yeah. So the statistics on what I'm talking about is based. Obviously, you're talking about so many variables. It's almost like, it's a bit of a reach. But as far as we can tell, obviously we're trying to tell, trying to see if another planet would be there like ours, with the same kind of set principles, that they would be live as us, with flesh and bone and
carbon-based life forms.
Yeah, carbon-based life forms. Obviously, they would need a habitable planet. They would need some, a series of events that would make it so. And these series of events, if whatever happens, those minerals at the right time, at the right temperature, blah blah blah, in the water with the whatever.
And things like their moon would have to be a certain size. Their moon would have to be a certain distance to create tidal effects of the planet and stuff like that.
Yeah, but like our planet has been inhabitable for so long. Like if our life form started a little bit later on a cosmic time scale, a little bit later, a little bit sooner, if that exact thing would have happened, it wouldn't have been possible. So it's very rare that that would be so. So as far as we can tell statistically, obviously you can say, okay, there's so many stars, so and you can't even comprehend. The mind is too small to comprehend how many stars there are.
The latest telescope imagery of the stars, not the Hubble, the James Webb telescope, absolutely mind blowing.
Yeah. So I guess to say then from that there must be life. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But if we retrace our steps, from what we know, it's very unlikely. Or it's not impossible, but it is quite unlikely.
They even say as far as for us to be it. I've seen videos presented by scientists saying that it's it should be impossible that we're here even, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that millions of light years before us there wasn't any life form, or after us there will be life forms. That could all be true, but in a vastness of space and the
just to take on what you said though, which I completely get, and I'm sure a lot of other people get as well, that then brings people to debating two things, and that's the God made it all. When you look at the sheer impossibility of the fact that we shouldn't be here, but we are. When you look at the fact of the weird things like how the moon is a certain size and how it blocks out the sun at a certain date in such a perfect way, all these different strange factors that it's not by accident, it's by design. So just hear me out. I'm not saying it is, but you can see why people believe that. And then there's other people who believe, and I'm probably not going to touch on it today, but we can touch on it another day, is the simulation theory.
Yeah, I have it here noted down that maybe it's something to talk about, which I do want to talk about maybe at some point.
Okay, we've got. If you want to go about the simulation theory, crack on then, mate. Let's go in that direction.
I guess the simulation theory, is it can get more as a meta theory than that, I guess. On many ways to look at it. Even if we live in a simulation, like these change of events to us happening on this planet could still be true. For one. So, it's very like big way of thinking. Simulation. Yeah.
There's a really interesting, I'm not sure, I know his name, Donald Hoffman, I think it is. He's presented that he thinks that the human, I'm not sure, he talks about simulation theory, but he basically presents the thesis or theory that human consciousness and the human brain is nothing more than an operating system. And what I mean by that is that it's a deciphering tool that we've got all these streams of data coming in from the simulation or from consciousness. And
I mean,
our brain,
for I don't know this person, but for to a certain degree, I can get into that because the brain, all it does is just trying to predict.
presents a really good
computer.
case.
It's just it keeps trying to take data and build on that and predict, and that's how we live. But I don't know if that's close to what you're trying to say, but I don't know about that particularly. Some interesting ideas.
Well, I'll tell you what, let's both go and look into simulation theory, and come back and have a chat about it maybe, well, as soon as possible, really, and focus the next chat on that. How's that suit you? It's a really interesting topic. Really interesting topic.
Yeah, I do have some interesting ideas, but I don't really know how to.
Well, I'll take a back seat and I'll listen to you try and present them, mate. We're all learning here. We're all trying to make sense of things and put things forward. So if you think you can put them forward, please do.
Right. So the biggest argument to say that we're not living in a simulation is that if this would be a simulation, if our reality would be a simulation, and our universe would be in that simulation, is that there wouldn't be any computer that have the computing power to be able to compute all our realities at the same time.
Process that data.
Yeah, so that's one of the bigger arguments that I've read. And there you go, and you've got quantum physics, and that basically says that particles behave differently when we observe them than when we don't.
The split experiment.
Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into that because I'm not
Another
a
conversation.
physicist by any means. Yeah, that's the whole conversation on itself. But you could say from a developer's point of view, I mean, we play games, and when you play the game, when you play your character, you're like in an open world or whatever. Not the whole game is there at the same time. The world just gets rendered as you go along. So it would make
what you're
sense.
facing, what you're perceiving, what's in your direct vision is being
Exactly.
rendered, whilst the rest of it's not. So like Unreal Engine 5, basically.
Exactly like the double split experiment, right? What you're observing is being rendered, and the rest that's not there is still there, but not really.
Yeah.
So
Donald Hoffman presents this as well. This is Donald Hoffman.
okay.
Yeah. I'll put a picture of the book up on the podcast so people can see it.
Yeah. So the further you go into these type of topics, it becomes, for me, how deeper we go, like into quantum physics, and we study the building blocks of our reality, it becomes very weird.
Yeah.
Like,
wasn't it one of the top physicists, like not Niels Bohr or Feynman, I can't remember who it was now, but he said, if you understand quantum physics, you don't understand it, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Or if you make
that's
sense
what
of quantum physics, you don't understand it. I'll have to get the actual quote, put it in the video for the podcast. But yeah, basically saying, if you think you know what you talk about, you're chatting rubbish. In layman's terms.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. And I think like computing power, and if we would be like at the end of our technological tree and we would try to develop a simulation, we would also try, obviously, if you want to have a game, you need basic physics, right? So
Okay.
we have, you need to have these games running on certain principles.
Can I put something to you?
Sorry?
Can I put something to you, a theory or a perception I had once? So
Sure.
imagine you're a spacefaring species, yeah? And you are traveling throughout the eons of space and time, in your AI-driven ships or whatever, stuff like that. And then you get to a planet, okay? And you want to colonize the planet, you want to live on the planet, but you can't because of many variables. Okay, so you need to basically create a intermediary species which can work for you, be slaves for you, or you yourselves can splice your DNA to inhabit and live on that planet. Okay, but out of the multitude of life forms upon that planet, how do you know which is the best life form or DNA, combination to use to survive on that planet? So you could go down nuts and bolts physical reality and start splicing entities, and see which one works best. But that's time, that's resources you probably haven't got, And at the same time, if those experiments are using the resources of the planet, you're potentially wasting resources which you might need yourself. So what would make more sense would be to gather data on what life forms are living on that planet and what DNA, combinations living on that planet, and create a simulation. To see whether dolphin people are going to be the best slaves, or monkey people are going to be the best slaves, or zebra people are going to be the best slaves. You see what I'm saying? And just run numerous simulations, see which species has got the most potential. Do you get where I'm coming from?
Okay.
So that's just something I want to throw in there. I'm not saying that's the case, but it's also like sort of makes you ponder, like, are we living in a simulation because something's testing us out? Something's testing out, and when you start hearing of their multi-dimensional species and extraterrestrials coming through multi-dimensional veils, are we actually bleeding into other simulations? Are we meeting entities from other simulations? The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, I guess.
Super went off on a tangent, but I just want to throw that in there.
No, obviously that would, that would be all possible. Sure, but then again, that wouldn't mean there's a base reality.
Yeah.
And in that case, we don't know anything about that base reality, and we should just try and still
have compassion and discernment.
Yeah, obviously we are conscious or have the illusion that we are to some degree. That doesn't mean we can't live up to our fullest potential or
and I think it boils down to, even if we live in God's created universe, even if we live in a conscious universe, even if we live in a hologram, even if we live in a simulation, as Neo was asked in The Matrix, why do you do what you do at the end when Agent Smith can't beat him? And he says, because I choose to. I think that's the question we've got to ask ourselves, is what do we choose? What do we want to choose for this hologram? What do we want to choose for this simulation? What do we want to choose for this illusionary reality or physical reality? How do we want to be? And that's the choice. It boils down to, what do you choose to do? And personally, for me, it boils down to being a compassionate human being, the best I can be, because the reality, or what we understand as reality, is so multifaceted and so complex that it can blow your mind and it can make you delusional. And there's a lot of people suffering. We all suffer. We've all got trauma. We've all got pains. We've all got fears and anxieties. And I think if we can alleviate those fears and anxieties in ourselves and others, then that's the best thing we can do for our species and ourselves, whether we are in a simulation or otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, on a personal level, yeah, I think that is the way to go about it.
Well, coming up to half an hour, Soul. I hate to cut you short, but if there's any closing notes you want to say to people?
I guess it's just scratching the surface. So
we're going to pick this up again soon, buddy. It's just that this is our first podcast. I've got to figure out how to put it together now. And I want to get back to this because I think we can have some interesting conversations, like know what the viewers think as well. But thanks for your time, Soul. It's been a great pleasure.
Yeah, you too, man.
And goodbye, everyone else. Peace.
Take care.